Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Palo Alto. I'm Amy Zucker Morgenstern. My pronouns are she or they pronouns. You are very welcome here. We gather our different paths entwined to deepen our spiritual lives, nourishing connection, learning from each other, caring for each other, tending to our world. I want to make a couple of announcements. One is to please take care of your own health and help others to take care of theirs by masking if you feel the need, observing whatever distance and contact limitations you need to, attending virtually on a morning that you're not feeling well, and of course, keeping up to date with vaccinations. Everybody makes their own decisions about these things, but we can really help each other out. And of course, not judging other people's decisions about how much limit and protection they need. If you are here in person and you have questions about Unitarian Universalism or this congregation, hope you'll stop by the welcome table after the service and chat with a friendly volunteer from the membership team. You can leave your contact information if you want to receive notifications of upcoming events. Lots are in the order of service. And if this is the week that you'd like to join this congregation, you can do that there today as well. And if you have a cell phone, I definitely want it to make beautiful birdsong noises. Could everybody please take a moment right now to set your your ringtone to beautiful bird noises? That would be so awesome. No, really, it's a delight. Same thing online. There's somebody there to greet you and give you links to getting more information about the congregation, including filling out a form for a membership or just getting information. So, welcome. There is lots going on. Please check out your order of service and the website so you don't miss something you'd like to participate in. If you have a live order of service, there are lots of links there. So if you're holding a piece of paper right now, I definitely urge you to go check out the details on the website after the service. I'd like to particularly call your attention to the activity fair 2 weeks from today. The small group designed for newcomers called Starting Point, starting soon. And this afternoon, the celebration of the life of Dick Clark right here and also on a Zoom link that you'll find on the website. Please note that's not the same Zoom room you're in right now. And now, let us begin our service. If you have a chalice there at home, please light it along with me. We light this chalice to celebrate the inherent worth and dignity of every person. To reaffirm the historic pledge of liberal religion to seek that justice which transcends mere equality, mere legality, and moves toward the resolution of true equality. And to share that love which is ultimately beyond even our cherished reason, that love which unites us. With our centering words each week, we draw on the many sources of our living tradition. Today's words are from the contemporary U.S. American lawyer, professor, activist, author, and founder of the Equal Justice Initiative, Bryan Stevenson. I also believe that in many parts of this country, and certainly in many parts of this globe, the opposite of poverty is not wealth. I actually think in too many places, the opposite of poverty is justice. As we follow the sound of the bell into silence, we allow ourselves to arrive here fully. Will the young and young at heart join me on the quilt up here to meet a few of my friends? I'm gonna need some help from everybody today here. So, actually, can we push this whole thing back? I put it way too, thank you so much, Eloise. Okay. I need a few people and a few props. All right. So, I wanted to tell you that the Unitarian Universalists all got together in June, as we do every year, and we did something we haven't done in a really long time. We decided on a new set of principles. We're calling them our shared values. Now, they are not really very different from our old principles, and people who know the language of them will recognize a lot of it. But they can be summed up in 6 words. So I thought we could start teaching the grown-ups what they were. If you could maybe each hold one of these letters that stands for them up so the congregation can see it. Can you, let's see, we have 6, perfect. So this is a J for justice. Can you just hold that for a moment so everybody can see it? And here's an E for equity. Can you keep holding it up? That facing that way so everybody can see. And here's a T for transformation. A P for pluralism. An I for interdependence, and can you hold it up? And your dad is going to hold up a G for generosity. All right, Izzy, hold that up because we're going to need that I. Everybody, what does that spell? Jet pig. Jet pig. Did somebody say jet pig? Okay, you can put them down. Okay. Jet pig. This is our jet pig. Now, these are all these values that we share, and I'm going to be spending a service on each one. Today's service is equity, and we will have our little friend Jet Pig here to remind us every time what they all are. So you can think J, justice, J for justice. Now, they are all held together by one other value, and that is love. So this little pig's name is love. Hi! I love the JetPeg. JetPeg brought a couple friends today to demonstrate something about equity, because that's our theme. And, oh, I have to get up again. How does Kat manage this? She's much more organized than I am. She doesn't have to get up and down. And she's younger, so when she does get up and down, she's better at it. Okay. I wanted to explore a little idea about what equity is. Equity, thank you. Yes, keep holding that up for us so we see the word. These are my friends Pad, short for Paddington, and Mouse. You may be able to tell they have been friends of mine for a very long time, and they have also been best friends. You know what? I'm gonna need Mouse right now, so you can come visit him after the service. But right now he has to do something for me. What I want is, you see, Pad and Mouse both want to be able to see the congregation, and they can't really see very well over this this singing bowl. So I thought, yeah, come on up. Please come join the story. So I'm gonna put a book here so they can see. How am I doing there? Did I solve the problem yet? Not exactly. Mouse can't see. Pad, can you see? Pad says he can see. Okay. Well, I mean, they're both sitting on the book. I did what I could. Do you think I should do something else? What should I do? Another book for Mouse? I think I'll just put it under Mouse, right? Because Pad doesn't need it. How are we doing? Can you see there yet, Mouse? Yeah, Mouse is very short. He's used to needing a box to sit on. How about 3? There we go. I think his eyes are just peeking over now. So what do you think? Does this look fair to you? Because somebody said pretty much, because, you know, Paddington only has one book and Mouse has 3. Is that equal? It's not equal. 1 and 3 are not equal. But this is kind of the difference between what people might call equality and equity. What we have is equity. They both have what they need to see over. And Paddington needs 1 book and Mouse needs 3. 4 might be better. Here you go, Mouse. And so we've established equity. So that's a good thing to notice. You might notice, pay attention in your world to where people have things that are different, but they give them both what they need, and so they're getting equity. And we can think about how can we bring about more equity. And let me know if you notice any situations like that. Oh, thank you. You know, and sometimes you just got to go do a little extra work and go get the book. Thank you. Now they can both really see. I really appreciate that, Eloise, and so does Mouse. Mouse is going to give you a kiss. All right. So they can both see. 4 and 1. You know, Mouse is very short. That's what he needs. Well, thank you. We have childcare today and playtime. Next week, we have all our different groups from preschool up to high school and all sorts of stuff going on. So make sure that your parents get you all registered for religious education. Thank you very much. Will you hold up E for us one more time? Because E, equity, is our word of the day. Equity. Thank you so much. We are all going to sing number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. We'll sing it twice, which I think will give you all time to go on out to your class after you've heard it once. To your playtime. And thank you so much for all the help. We're just going to leave this here, you know. The choir's not here today, so everybody can hang out. Jet, Pig, Pad, Mouse, the whole deal. Okay, let's sing. Whoop. Please rise in body or spirit, and the words are here on your screen as well as in your order of service. Lovely. The choir also has their Sunday off today. but they are going to be back and singing a special song in memory of Dick Clark this afternoon, so we'll hear them then. And now we turn. Blessed Be. I want to tell you a little bit about this song before Stephen introduces it for us. In 1910, garment workers in Chicago who were paid by the piece had their rates cut by 1/4 cent per piece. This was a significant hardship, and there were other problems with how the workplace was run, and so they went on strike. They were mostly women because women were seen as cheap labor, and the Women's Trade Union of Chicago led the way. News accounts of the strike reported signs among the strikers that said, "We want bread and we want roses too. We want fair wages, but we also want and need to be treated with dignity." Soon after that, suffragists picked up this phrase, and a poet named James Oppenheim wrote the words to the song we're about to sing. The song speaks of women, speaks as if it's being sung by women, but we all need bread and roses. And it speaks of marching, but however we move and however we express ourselves, stationary or on foot or on wheels, we can do it together. So Oppenheimer's words were set to music by at least 2 composers. One is in the Gray Hymnal as number 109, but we're singing a different tune, written by Mimi Farina. So please join in singing Bread and Roses. The words are on screen and in the online order of service. Rise in body or spirit. Thank you. The tune in the hymnal's nice too, but this feels more like a march to me. Our reading is a compilation from several sources, ranging from ministers to activists to tycoons to writers. So I won't identify them each one by one, but I'll put a link to all of this on the service page of the website. Jesus came into this world not as a philosopher or a general, but as a carpenter. All work matters to God. No work is insignificant. All labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence. A working woman is a human being with a heart, with desires, with aspirations, with ideas and ideals. And when we think of food and shelter, we merely think of the actual necessities to cover her body and to feed her. But what about the other things? Have we thought of providing her with books, with money for amusements? Have you thought about a girl providing herself with a good room that had plenty of air, proper ventilation, in a somewhat decent neighborhood? Do you think of all these things when we speak of a minimum wage? Do you want a girl to have a nice, comfortable room? It was very profitable to discriminate against women and against people of color. When I entered the workforce, I began to understand that change could come, but you could not do it alone. You had to unite with others. That was one of the reasons I became part of the union. It was a sort of family that would help in the struggle. It is not wealth one asks for, but just enough to preserve one's dignity, to work unhampered, to be generous, frank, and independent. I believe in the dignity of labor, whether with head or hand, that the world owes no man a living, but that it owes every man an opportunity to make a living. What we would like to do is change the world. Make it a little simpler for people to feed, clothe, and shelter themselves. And by fighting for better conditions, by crying out unceasingly for the rights of the workers, the poor, the destitute, we can, to a certain extent, change the world. We can work for the oasis, the little cell of joy and peace in a harried world. I'm thinking of a person who's probably doing this work quite near us right now as I speak. In a hospital or a nursing home, rehab facility quite near us. It's probably a woman doing this work. So I'll say that she has a bowl of warm water and a soft cloth, and she's cleaning a patient's skin, cleaning it of urine and feces and dried blood. All the mess that remains after surgery or an injury or childbirth. Again and again, she rinses out the cloth, warms it with fresh water, and gently, gently touches this person's skin until it is perfectly clean and able to heal. She's kneeling at their feet, below their bed, so as to get everywhere she needs to get. This is sacred work. Caring for another person, especially a person who's very vulnerable. Protecting that vulnerability by treating the job seriously and being tender, not briskly as if to get it over with, or as if she's washing an object, but mindful of the person, preserving their dignity at a time when their most private feelings and body parts have been laid bare. A time when they're hurt and maybe afraid and very, very vulnerable. What sacred work. How do we convey our respect for somebody's work? Lots of different ways. We're going to share some of them in a little bit. Maybe through compensation. We pay them well. Maybe through societal respect. They have a job that people in general think is worthy and worthy of celebrating. Sometimes we tell them straight out, that's what you do? What wonderful work. I don't think on any of these measures that woman in the hospital would be considered very far up from the bottom rank of the workers there. This work she does is not compensated well. It doesn't get a lot of respect. Work with people's bodily fluids seldom does. And I doubt many people are stopping to tell her, that's wonderful work you're doing, and you're doing it well. When we think about these measures or other measures of showing our respect for the dignity of work, what do you think is the most respected work in this culture? Would you just call it out or put it on Zoom and I'll repeat it so everybody can hear it? What do you think when you say, what's a respected job? Tell us about your culture. What jobs are really respected here? Teachers. Doctor. Minister. Aw. What? Lawyer. Heard teachers again. Anybody up on Zoom? Go ahead and put it there and I'll see it. What's that? Athletes. Scientists. Firefighters. Finance, emergency techs. Engineers. Actors and actresses. I think I'm hearing different measures here, because some of these are clearly not paid particularly well, but they're deeply respected. Jesse said teacher right out, and other people have called that out. Don't tend to be paid very well. And the younger the people they teach, the less they get paid. I do not understand the logic of that, but that's where we're at. And then there's things like athletes and actors and actresses that we may respect a great deal. Certainly they're compensated very highly, at least the very highest level of them. I've noticed for a long time that the best 100 kindergarten teachers in the country are not paid as well, nearly as well, remotely as well, as rather mediocre actors and athletes. Yeah. So we have it a little bit mixed up, I'd say. I'd like to get personal. I'd like us to take a little time. Almost everybody in this room has worked some kind of job. And volunteer jobs are cool too. And just break up into pairs. William is going to put you in pairs if your group is big enough, or just have you in a room there on Zoom. And take a moment. Would you put the slide up there for me, Kevin? The first slide, to answer to tell these questions to each other, the answers to these questions. A time that your work was treated with the dignity it deserved, and how you knew. You know, what did people do? What was the sign that it was treated well? And a time that somebody did not treat your work with dignity, and again, what told you that there was not respect for the work you were doing? Would you just break into pairs and share those things with each other, both? Each sharing both of these things. And I know that can be quite loud, so if that makes it very difficult for you to hear, please do go on out to the lobby. I'm sorry that that's the way it has to work, but it's just, this is the louder room. And I'll call you back in a couple minutes. Those two questions. Shall we? Well, thank you. All right. I'm going to call you back so that we can hear. I feel like I need to do that youth group thing. If you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, clap 3 times. You don't usually even have to get to 3. It works so well. I am glad that you don't want to stop these conversations. Please continue them. Sneaky minister trick after the service. But I'd love to be able to share a couple of the things that people shared more widely right now. So if there's something, again, put it in the Zoom chat if you're on Zoom, or something you want to call out that you shared, or that, obviously, if it's okay with your conversation partner, they shared, call it out and I'll repeat it so everybody can hear it. What was a time that you felt respected, that the dignity of your work was respected? And what did that for you? May I share? Stephen is a music teacher as well as a marvelous pianist, and he said, oh, I'm sorry, a math teacher. I just assumed. The multi-talented, Veronica even told me that. As a math teacher, students often say thank you, just as they're leaving the classroom, and that's a measure of thank you, respect for what I've just done. Anybody else have an example of when they felt, how they know that their work is valued and respected? Yes, please. Diane.
A physical crisis with a client. I'm a counselor.
I'm going to just share that with everybody. Diane had she's a counselor, and she had a physical crisis with a client.
And he was a 10-year-old that was trying to destroy property and kill himself. And my boss, I called to her, and she came and helped me. And so we were able to hold him without harming him until we were able to get help.
So.
This was a respect because she was in a position of authority,
Mm-hmm.
but she came down to my level as an equal and helped me keep this child from hurting himself or anyone else.
Just do what needed to be done. So Diane told a story of working with a 10-year-old boy who was threatening to destroy property and kill himself, and that her supervisor came and joined her in holding him in a way that could keep him from harming himself and show respect to him, and what respect that showed for Diane's work to come on down to that level and do what needed to be done. Thank you. That's a great example. Fran.
Okay. We both basically said that when you have a good boss, you get praise and you get the value, it's communicated.
Thank you.
And we were in very different fields.
Fran and Laura are in very different fields, but both said that when you have a good boss, they give praise and thank you and appreciation for your work, and so you feel, yeah, wonderful, across, no matter what field. Okay, the bad news. Anybody have an example of a time that you did not feel respected and why that was? Feel like the work that you did was not given the dignity it deserved? Yes. Who's that? Barbara. Were you raising your hand, Barbara? No. Yeah, just call to me and I'll say it to everybody.
Okay. When I started going to college, my father wanted me to work to pay for at least half of it, so I'd have a good work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
And
And I'm just going to, so people don't zone out, Barbara's saying when she started in college, her father wanted her to work a job for money to develop a good work ethic. And
my father was a design engineer across the river from our house at Oldsmobile. So I wanted to work at Oldsmobile because it was well known that's one of the best paying jobs you can have if you can get a job there.
mm-hmm. I love the way you're pausing for me to do this. And her father was a design engineer at Oldsmobile, and she thought, oh, I'll go work there. That's the best paying job you can have. It's well known and respected.
So I went across the river to the office to fill in an application and get a job there. And the guy who's taking applications said, no. How many words a minute do you type? You will be a secretary. That's the only job we have. And I said, wait a minute, no. I said, no. I go to school and I'm working and I won't have time final assembly, you have to be strong and fast. And I looked at him, and that little 4-year-old girl inside me, oh, yeah, and I dropped down on the floor in front of him, and I did 10 full plank push-ups. I said, your turn.
All right, I'm gonna say this for everybody who needs a mic. Thank you. I can't act like Barbara. Woo! And as you can tell, it has a happy ending. So she went across and she filled out an application. She was hoping for an assembly job. And the guy said, how many words a minute can you type? And she did this great, the body language is so key, isn't it, to conveying respect or disdain. The only job that was available to her was being a secretary. But she insisted, she dropped to the floor, showed him how many push-ups she could do, and she got the final assembly job. So, sometimes it works out. Well, thank you for those examples, for that example. Now, yes?
I was at junior high school.
Uh-huh. Okay, hold on a moment. So Lee's saying, so the junior in high school, she got a job at McDonald's. She was in charge of fries, and in the evening,
I was walking by with fries, and I slipped, and it rained fries all over me. And everyone applauded. I was so embarrassed. And the boss came by and applauded as well.
oh my gosh, she slipped as she was walking by the fries. That's got to be a slippery spot, right? Frying oil that hits the floor. She slipped and fell, and everybody, including the boss, applauded. I am so sorry. And you hold on to it, right? All these years later from being a junior in high school. Thank you for those examples, Lee and Barbara. Now, something else that conveys disrespect, and maybe some of your examples were this, and I know one of the ones I thought of was, is too much inequity. This is where our jet pig and our theme of equity come in. You know, if hard work is something to respect, and we generally say it is, then society-wide we might observe that people are working longer hours and being paid less in real dollars year over year. Certainly if you look back decades, it's quite striking. In the same time, productivity is up. The U.S. workforce is working hard, making things happen, but wages are stagnant. Not surprisingly, this also creates inequity. Would you put up the slide so we just have that, so we can start memorizing? This is the E in our JetPeg. Equity. If you're familiar with the previous statement of our principles, you can see that we've chose to use some of the same language that has worked so well. Equity. We declare that every person is inherently worthy and has the right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. And we covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities. Like Mouse there. You need 4 books, Mouse, we're going to get you the 4 books. Now, it's very interesting to look at what, as a country, as a culture, yeah, please just leave it up there. Maybe people will memorize it. You know, maybe it'll sink in. So what we think would be an equal society, what we would love to see, if we could just snap our fingers and make it so, what we believe we have right now in terms of equality in this society, and what we really have. And for this, and I'll again put the link in the, I feel like my favorite podcaster, a link in the show notes. I'll put a link on the webpage for this service to this video, because it's about 6 minutes long and it's really worth watching. But I'll sum up a few things. It's on wealth inequality in this country in specific, and of course wealth and income are different, and I'm mixing them all up here. But here's what people would love to see. 92% of the people asked gave an idea of here's the distribution of wealth. If you take the 5 quintiles, the poorest up to the richest, 20%, how would they like it to be distributed? And these 92% do not need it to be completely equal. They had the top 20% having about a third of the wealth. And then the bottom 20% didn't have a full 20%. They had about 1/10 of the total wealth. Okay. That's what people wish for. What people think we have is quite different. They think that it's divided so that the top 20 have about 60% of the wealth, not about 35%, about 60%. So about twice as much as people would like to see. And the bottom 20% have about 3%, so only about a third of what they would like to see. That's what people said overall when they were asked, what do you think the equality situation is like in America? By the way, this is data, the video was made about 11 years ago, and the data is a couple years older than that. So just make all this more extreme, because it's only continued to move in this direction. Here's what is the reality. The bottom 80% of people, not the bottom 20%, the bottom 80% have 7% of the wealth. The top 1%, not the top 20%, the top 1% of people in wealth have 40% of the wealth. It's only gotten worse since this was made. People who said what they thought was happening, and especially what they thought the ideal was, were willing to tolerate quite a lot of inequality. They said, somebody who's very wealthy might make 100 times what the poorest people make. But the way we have it is the wealthiest have 380 times, not the poorest, but the average worker. I'm thinking that you're saying amen, not because you want it that way, but you're saying, preach it, sister. Preach it, sister is also welcome. So what does it mean to commit to equity in such a system? Now, there's lots and lots of economic policy changes that people would like to suggest, all the way from remove all restrictions. We should, I read that part of that reading was somebody speaking over 100 years ago saying, could we have a minimum wage, please? Some people would say that's just causing problems. Get away from the minimum wage and all other sorts of controls. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, there's lots of suggestions like a universal basic income so that nobody gets too poor, no matter how much inequality there is, making sure the minimum wage is a living wage, or at least raising the minimum wage and maybe indexing it to inflation so we don't have to have this fight every 40 years and people get way behind before we bring them up a little bit after a 10-year fight. Just a thought. Lots of things we could do in returning to the taxation we had in the 50s and 60s, say, when our income equality and wealth equality and taxation were all, the wealth inequality was much better, the income inequality was much better, and the taxation was much more progressive. Highest taxes, highest paid people got paid much more. Lots of other ideas, ways to tax wealth, for example. But there's also, if we're committed to equity, as we covenant to do as a Unitarian Universalist congregation, then we also need to commit to a change of heart in our culture, helping make that happen. I like that word flourishing, that we all want to be able, everybody to be able to flourish. Now, economics can be cherry-picked, even worse than the Bible. You can, pick an economist to support any position you may have. But many, many economists say that too much inequality is really bad for the economy overall, for the culture overall. Not that everything has to be perfect parity. The woman who's tenderly cleaning somebody's bloody thighs in the hospital, getting paid exactly what the neurosurgeon is getting paid. But more equality and a sense of equity, everybody having what they need if they're working hard at work that we consider worthwhile. Most economists reckon when we all flourish, we all flourish. I want to tell you a quick story about the dignity and worth of work to suggest something we might need to change internally and watch for in the hearts of the people around us. Maybe you've heard this story in another context. A man comes along and he sees a stonemason at work. Stonemason is laying down the mortar and setting the stone in place, and the man says, "What's that you're doing?" The stonemason, probably thinking, "Why are you asking me this question?" says, "I'm laying stone. I'm a stonemason." Okay. So the man walks along, and undaunted, because, this is not real life, but an illustrative story, he sees another stonemason working, and he says, "What are you doing there?" Man says, "I'm building a building." And he goes on around the building site. It's a big building site. And he sees a third stonemason and says, "What's that you're doing?" And the man says, "I'm building a cathedral." Now, you can imagine that the attitudes that these three stonemasons have about work, their own work, the dignity and worth of it, make a big difference in how they feel when they go off to work. Whether you're just laying stone, or you're building a building, or you're building a cathedral. But it's also mirrored in our attitudes towards people's work. In this culture, we treat a lot of people as if what they're doing is not worthwhile. I mean, I was just listening to a song on the way over, complete coincidence that I tuned into this music I haven't listened to for a long time, and the singer is playing a guy who's turned to crime because he's so broke, and he says, "Yeah, I could get a job, but I got my pride. I ain't working in no hamburger stand." And I thought, that's the way a lot of people feel. I've heard people say, if you want a living wage, stop working at McDonald's and get yourself a real job. Well, if serving hamburgers is not worthy, then why is it a multi-billion-dollar business? People want hamburgers served, so the work is worthy, is it not? And if you work full-time at it and do it well, you should be able to live on that. Doesn't seem crazy. I think we justify the terrible pay by saying that the work has no dignity. If the work is worth doing, it's worth compensating well, it's worth doing well, and it's worth our respect. So when we hear those attitudes of disrespect, whether they're expressed just like I just said them, or if they're expressed by the belief that somebody should be able to struggle along on 1/3 of what's a living wage where they live, in the interest of equity, the value we share, we can challenge that. That would be a fine way to honor the laborers and workers that we honor this weekend. Let us now take up the offering that supports our work. We are part of the Free Church tradition. We accept no money from any governmental body, nor do we receive money from any ecclesiastical authority. And we arrived at that decision many, many years ago because each congregation wanted to be free to govern itself. And so we fund the church by ourselves, in addition to their annual pledges, which is the bulk of our support. Each week, our members and friends may choose to give an additional contribution as a public witness that we are and shall remain a free faith. You can use cash or check to contribute to the offering, or the QR code, or text info in the order of service, and we will now give and receive our offering. Thank you. Please join in singing For All That Is Our Life. It's number 128 in the gray hymnal, and the words again are on screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you so much. Stephen played some of my favorites without even asking. He just read my mind. Whether you're online or in the main hall, please stay after the benediction for our conversation time. There's coffee and tea here. And we begin with greeting time. Take a moment to find somebody you haven't met before or haven't seen in a long time, and especially old timers, see if you can greet a newcomer and find out enough about them to introduce them to somebody else they'd want to meet. Now, if you're online, please unmute yourself, turn on your video. You might do that virtual touching of hands, like touching the edge of your box. Like that. And in the main hall, reach out to hold hands if you and the person next to you are comfortable with that. Or cross your hands over your heart if that works better for you. Go out into the